Cape Cod Broadcasting weaves the listening environments of 99.9 WQRC, Ocean 104.7, WFCC Classical 107.5, Cape Country 104, and CapeCon.com's website experience to reflect the lifestyles of the people who live, work, and play on Cape Cod. We hope that you enjoy this podcast.
I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal. We're talking to candidates in locally contested races. We have a contested race in the 2nd Barnstable District. The incumbent representing the district is Brian Mannal, and he is being challenged by Adam Chaprales. Brian Mannal, welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Let's start with you introducing yourself to voters for those who may not know you.
Well, my name is Brian Mannal. I grew up here in Barnstable. I moved back about 7 years ago. I went to law school and college in Ohio. For those who don't know, my family's lived here for years. My dad is Dr. Mannal. He's an orthopedic surgeon. He retired 2 years ago. My mom, Karen Mannal, is a nurse practitioner. She worked with him, but now works as a hospice nurse. I own a small practice, private practice, general practice law firm. I manage and own it in Hyannis. I have to say that since taking office, I've placed the practice pretty much on hold so that I can represent our community up on Beacon Hill. My kids attend Barnstable Public Schools. My wife works as the Channel 18 public access television anchor in the morning, and I love this community, and that was one of the reasons why I originally ran for office, because I saw an opportunity, and I felt that we needed better representation up on Beacon Hill.
And what do you feel are your accomplishments while you've been holding the seat?
Well, I've, let's see, to rattle them off. In the past 18 months, I've passed 5 laws. As a matter of fact, I just actually passed a 6th law this past week. It has to be enacted by the House, but I don't see why that wouldn't happen. By contrast, my predecessor passed 4 laws in 14 years. I have worked across the aisle. I've co-sponsored legislation to reform EBT fraud monitoring. I voted against the tech tax, and I helped to repeal that tax. The first time in Massachusetts history that a tax has been enacted and then withdrawn or repealed within 2 months. Actually, I passed more laws than any other freshman representative up there. I brought more money back than ever before to Barnstable and Dennis Yarmouth Public Schools. I helped to secure money for transportation infrastructure projects, including the Cape Flyer passenger train, which was the only profitable train this year in the MBTA system. I filed amendments and helped to secure $140,000 for Children's Cove of Cape Cod. That's the group that deals with children who have been victims of sexual abuse. I also got $50,000 in addition to the allocation for the Cape Cod Community College of specifically set aside for a STEM pilot program. I got $100,000 for Bay State commercial fishermen. I've helped to obtain grant money for regional tourism and arts, extra money for Barnstable Public Schools for English language learners, money to help redevelop a Hyannis Park, and also money for a sewage pump-out station in Lewis Bay, which will actually help our environment. Those are some of the legislative accomplishments, but I've also, been an advocate for different causes as I've been up there.
So a long list of different things. Of all those different things, what are you most proud of? What has most excited you as while you've been state rep?
What have I been most proud of?
In terms of your accomplishments on the Hill.
Well, I don't know. There's a broad range of issues that I've helped with. I can't say that one in particular gives me more pride than the next. I think that if you look at my record, I've certainly been hard at work, and I've had a perfect voting record. I've never missed a vote up on Beacon Hill. I've tried to the best of my ability to really engage this job in a way that I think it deserves, and by that I mean, from day one, I've been available to the public. I've instituted monthly, regular office hours so that I can meet with constituents in Barnstable and Yarmouth. I've tried to get out and speak with folks. I've attended, the town meeting in Yarmouth. I regularly go to town council meeting here in Barnstable. I've attended school meetings, really just being present and active participant in our community, because I think that's what a representative is. It's not just someone who gets up in grandstands and says that we can do better or this needs to change just for change's sake. It's actually about, getting in and, rolling up your sleeves and doing the work. I've attended visioning sessions for transportation projects. I've met with the Cape Cod Commission. I've participated in economic development conversations. I've been an active participant with the Cape Cod Young Professionals in their Shape the Cape initiative. All of these things really, when you look at the grand scheme of things, I think that's what a representative is. They're someone who, doesn't necessarily focus on party lines, and I've tried to the best of my ability not to do that, to actually be a representative of all the people rather than, just a puppet for a particular party. And one of the blessings of the ways that I came into the office was by challenging an incumbent Democrat, someone who was entrenched for 14 years. I went in last time not really having a lot of support from the party infrastructure. And I think that in a way, while it was challenging at first, was certainly a blessing, because I wasn't beholden to that party line. I was able to look at things, I think, a little bit more independently and rationally. And, the tech tax is a prime example of that. When leadership decided that they wanted to tax the fastest growing part of the economy, I thought this is not a good idea. And I was an open and vocal advocate against that. I voted against it when I had the chance to do so. And when it actually was passed into law, I fought to repeal it. And I did that because, I served on the Cape Cod Economic Development Council for 5 years. I understand our economic development needs. I know that we're trying to grow the silicone sandbar. I also know that we invested $17 million in Open Cape. And what quicker way to sort of waste all of that effort than to tax this industry? And so, I'm proud of that, but I'm mostly proud of just sticking to my morals and my principles and fighting for things that I think are right and just, not what's popular. And there's a huge difference between that. It is sometimes very difficult up there to stand by your principles when all of your colleagues are going a certain way. But I've voted, against my party numerous times, and I've done so in good conscience, because I've been blessed to have been raised in a community that's what you do. You stand up for the right thing, not the popular thing.
And what would be an example of that, of a time that you voted against the party?
Well, in the case of the Tourism, Arts, and Cultural Development Committee, there was a bill this year that involved elephant bullhooks. And elephant bullhooks are these instruments that circuses use to control elephants. The bullhook is something of a torture instrument. And there were a lot of Democrats who were on the committee who basically sided with the circus and said that the benefit of the circus outweighs, the torture of these animals. And I took a long, hard look at that, and I thought, when I meet my maker someday, if I'm asked, did I have the chance to do something against animal abuse, did I do the right thing? And I took a very public stand, and I opposed the use of bullhooks. And as a result of that, the MSPCA earlier this year gave me the Courage Award. The U.S. Humane Society and the Massachusetts Fund for Animals also gave me an award for being a humane legislator.
Now, what do you feel are the biggest issues in the district looking forward?
We've got a variety of issues. Obviously, wastewater is an ongoing issue. This is going to be an issue that we'll deal with for the next 30 to 40 years. I think the Cape Cod Commission is doing some good work there. I think the calls to disband the commission based on their decision at Lowe's is really short-sighted because of some of the work that they're doing in terms of planning and smart growth. I think... Could you repeat the question?
Well, the biggest issues of the district, you mentioned wastewater. That's certainly one of them.
Well, I think that our opiate crisis here on Cape Cod is an emerging issue, something that we're still capable of getting our hands around. I have been a co-sponsor of legislation to improve that by basically expanding our drug courts. I think there's a difference between people who need to be put in handcuffs and people who need to have their hand held. And in the case of opiates, if it gets its hooks in you, it's just a devastating disease, this addiction. And this is something that's come about in just the past few years. It's something that, we're now looking at from a variety of different standpoints. There's different drugs that are out there that can help. But that's something that I'd like to address head on and that I have been working on head on.
And now this race has gotten heated, of course, in the past month or so. Why do you think this race has gone negative?
Well, I've been targeted by the Tea Party for a variety of reasons, I'm sure. But there are 20 Democrats across the state who have been basically falsely accused of different things. And there's one group in particular, it's known as the Mass Fiscal Alliance, that they've published mass mailers, and they've distributed them both in the mail and through the Cape Cod Times. And it's really a distortion of my voting record. As I said before, I have a strong record on veterans issues. I I filed legislation and was able to pass it to rename the Exit 6, Route 6 exit after fallen U.S. Navy SEAL Kevin Houston. I was the only member of the legislature this year to receive an award from the Massachusetts Veterans Service Officers Association for my work to pass the Valor Act 2. And that's an act that expands benefits for veterans and their families. And, I'm a Navy brat. My dad was in the Navy, and I was born in the Navy. But this group has falsely accused me of voting to give housing priority benefits to illegal immigrants, and nothing could be further from the truth. So what's been even more challenging and sad about that is that as I've gone around and spoken with different constituents and knocked on doors, I've heard that this is the mantra that my opponent has been using as well. So he's basically been misleading people about my legislative record. And
now so, we have less than a minute left, unfortunately. Any final words you'd like to say to voters?
Well, I'd say, first, I have been humbled and I feel blessed to have represented our district and the communities of Barnstable and Yarmouth in the State House. It has been a true honor, and I feel that I've done a good job, and I've been working hard for our community, and I hope to have the opportunity to continue that. I know that as we move forward, I'll continue to fight for Barnstable and Yarmouth, and I have no doubt that not only am I the most qualified for the position, but I'm also the most capable of moving legislation and actually bringing back results. So I ask when voters go to the polls on November 4th that they give me their vote, and I thank them for their support.
And unfortunately, we're out of time. I've been talking to Brian Mannal, a Democrat who is state representative in the 2nd Barnstable District. Thank you, Brian, for being here today.
Thank you, Laura.
I'm Laura Reckford, and this is Sunday Journal.
This podcast is a presentation of Cape Cod Broadcasting, which is solely responsible for its content. Thank you for listening. For more information, please visit us at capecodbroadcasting.com.